Hello and welcome to another Aston History podcast. I'm Brian Sudlow, lecturer in history at Aston University. Are you getting ready for your A-level history examination in the summer? If you are and you're looking for some hot tips about how to prepare, you've come to the right place. I have with me today Patrick O'Shaughnessy. Patrick, welcome to the podcast. Patrick is head of history at St. Christopher's International School in Bahrain, one of the leading international schools. He's just been named one of the world's top 50 edruptors in education, disruptors in education, I understand that to mean, according to ISC Research. He also has a couple of degrees from Leicester and Nottingham. He's a fellow of the Royal Society of Arts. He is also a published author. And in fact, he has written a very smart book, 33 versus History, Easy Ways to Improve, 33 Ways to Improve Your History Essays. So that's jam-cram full of all kinds of good tips to help make your essays even punchier and worthy of better grades. And he's also, as well, the editor of the Versus History podcast. So that's a podcast that talks about all sorts of matters in history. Patrick interviews authors and talks about various matters related to the study of history and so on. He did a recent podcast about ChatGPT and the impact of artificial intelligence. Patrick, welcome to the podcast. So glad that you can be here. Patrick, over to you. What would be your top tips for someone who's about to do a history A-level exam?
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much, Brian. And if you're out there listening, good luck in your forthcoming public examinations. I think all students out there that are undertaking any post-16 A-level course are going to know that essays are going to need an introduction, a main body, and a conclusion. So if I try to give you a tip for each of those, hopefully that will in some way suffice. Okay, for your introduction, I would suggest there's sort of three parts. You want a bit of context, you want some criteria and definitions, and you want a judgment. So by context, let's break that down. We could think the Socrative questioning model, the who, what, when, where, why. That's your chance to show the examiner that you really own this topic. You really know what you're talking about. So setting out some heavy subject-specific knowledge to really open up, maybe a sentence or two to really show that you're on the ball with this. Now, in the question, there's going to be some key terms. You want to make sure that you define those and or give criteria for it. So if it's asking you, was X a transformation? You want to give criteria for transformation. What does that mean? Well, it means marked or radical change, as opposed to just peripheral change, short-term change, or continuity. So really owning that question, you set the parameters for that. And then conclude your introduction with analysis, with a judgment. What's your judgment going to be? Don't leave the examiner guessing. You want to make sure that you have an analytical tone that is sustained and maintained throughout. And that doesn't mean we start analysing halfway through. Absolutely not. We definitely need to be analysing by the end, but we need to start that at the start. So context, criteria, and a judgment analysis in your introduction. Now, for the main body, you're probably going to break that down into paragraphs, I'm sure. The top tip there, ladies and gentlemen, would be start and end each paragraph. So lead into and then out of each paragraph with a direct response back to the question. A-levels don't really reward narrative. It's persona non grata. You're not going to get much traction against the mark scheme for telling stories, I'm afraid. So we need to make sure we're constantly biting back at the question. And we don't want to juncture or segue from one paragraph or section to another without directly responding to that question, either outlining the sort of relative merit or significance of the thing you're talking about, or just literally a direct response to the question. And I would say within those paragraphs, you want 2 to 3 really specific forensic pieces of evidence to essentially back up that argument. We don't want to build our analysis on a sort of sand. We want to build it on the firm foundations of really solid, relevant contextual knowledge. So start and end each paragraph with argument and fill that paragraph with 2 to 3 preferably at least, specific bits of evidence. Now, when it comes to your judgment, really it's just that. You want to make sure that you answer the question explicitly and directly, and it's concurrent with and it builds on the analysis from the body. So in terms of answering the question, if you're looking for a blueprint, something that you can just pick up and go, pret-a-porter, I would suggest begin your judgment with just that, a direct, unashamed answer to the question. Now, we know in history, we always move beyond binaries. Very rarely, if ever, is it going to be a yes, no, tall, short sort of answer. What we want to do is, once we've given our answer, we want to outline the relative weight of the also ran. So if we're arguing for, yes, it actually was a transformation, then we're going to go into, well, there is some credibility for continuity or sort of slight change. However, then we're going to segue into justifying the first part of that judgment, which is the judgment itself. So we're going to go from delivering explicitly, directly our answer. What's the relative weight of the also ran? But then segue into supporting that judgment. And then we conclude the judgment the same way we started, reaffirming that answer to leave the examiner absolutely 101%, no illusions, what your answer is, because the judgment should be just that, a judgment. Measured, nuanced and balanced, but a judgment nonetheless. We don't want sitting on the fence, and we don't want examiners scratching their heads thinking what actually was the answer, because I'm really not sure. Deliver it. There we go.
Perfect. Patrick, I should have podcasters more often on the show, because I don't have to do any work. You did all the work for me. Thank you very much.
Too kind.
So there you go. Go and have a look at Patrick's book on ways of improving your history essays. And I'm sure that if you follow his advice, you'll do really well in that history A-level exam in the summer. Patrick, thanks very much for coming on. This has been fantastic.
Thanks, Brian, and good luck to every single student out there sitting examinations. We know what it's like. All the best.